Good afternoon and good morning, good evening, wherever you may be. This event is live streamed on YouTube. Thank you very much for coming to the what happened in the Sri Lankan Presidential Elections event. My name is Adi Aman, and I'm a Senior Program Manager at the International Institute for Democracy and Electoral Assistance. In cooperation with our partner, the Asian Network for Free Elections, or ANFREL, we are organizing this event, and this is actually the third that we have organized. The first one was right after the Philippine elections in May 2022. The second one was after the Thai general elections in May 2023. And so this is the third one. The idea of the event is actually to provide a platform for, or a one-stop shop, as we call it, for those who are interested in knowing what happened in the elections. And who better for us to know or to learn how the elections happened, if it's not from the election observers. So usually election observers, they make a statement individually, and there's little to no opportunity for them to discuss their findings in public. So this is why we organize such an event, and we're very grateful to partner with ANFREL on this occasion. The discussion will be moderated by my colleague from ANFREL, Mr. Tarindu Aberatna. He is a Senior Program Officer for Campaign and Advocacy at ANFREL. So I'll hand over to Tarindu for moderating the event, and I hope you find this useful. Thank you.
Thank you, Adi. Welcome all of you gathered here today for this discussion, so that we are going to talk about what happened in Sri Lankan presidential election. Happened on 21st of September this year, so the couple of days before. Today we are going to gather the insights from both international and in the local citizen observer groups about what happened during the elections. We know there were many observer groups, international groups, and also many citizen observer groups have observed the election in different dimensions, I mean different aspects of the electoral process. So where we're going to discuss more about their findings and their insights on that. So today this program will be live streamed via YouTube, as Adi mentioned earlier, and also we have 2 rounds today. The first round, ANFREL will release the ANFREL's interim report for the international election observer mission that ANFREL conducted for 2024 Sri Lanka presidential elections. And the ANFREL interim report will be online in our website, www.anfrel.org. Also, I think you may have received some of the copies already. So without taking much time, I would like to call ANFREL, the team, to the stage for them to brief about the findings of ANFREL International Observer Mission. First, I would like to call Ms. Brisa Rosales. She is the Executive Director of ANFREL and also the Mission Director for the International Election Observer Mission for 2024 presidential election in Sri Lanka. And also I would like to call Dr. Manjesh Rana. He is the Senior Program Officer for International Election Observation in ANFREL and also one of the electoral analysts for this mission in Sri Lanka. So without taking time, I would like to hand over the floor to Brisa and Rana for the briefing.
Thank you, Tarindu. Good afternoon, everyone. So let's break the silence. Everyone is so silent. But good afternoon to all of the diplomatic communities, development partners, to media, the local observer groups, our committed CSOs here in Sri Lanka, and of course, the election monitoring organization as well. So this event is in partnership with International IDEA. Thank you, Adi, for making this possible. And this is our way also to promote and strengthen citizen observer rights. So we'll start from our findings for the Sri Lanka elections. And of course, ANFREL wants to congratulate the people of Sri Lanka for the steadfast commitment to democracy. It is demonstrated by the enthusiastic participation and level of engagement. It is truly admirable, actually, and it reflects the enduring strength of Sri Lanka's democratic spirit. So for this mission, our team is composed of, actually this is a small mission for ANFREL. So our team is composed of 12 long-term observers, including the 2 electoral analysts. And we have covered, for this mission, 300 plus stakeholder interviews. On election day, we were able to visit and observe 147 polling stations. And across the 2-week time that we are here in Sri Lanka, we have covered the pre-election processes, which includes the campaign period and the postal voting, as well as on election day and the post-election environment. So we have covered 74 rural and 73 urban cities, key cities, which is the composition of the 147 polling stations and the pre-election interviews. We have covered also 8 provinces and 15 cities, so at least we were managed to at least cover 8 out of the 9 provinces here in Sri Lanka. And yes, these are the photos of the stakeholders that we interviewed. So we connected with the Election Commission district offices, with the political parties and candidates as well. We really tried to chase them, at least to get the perspective of what they have, or what they will offer for this Sri Lankan presidential election. We also contacted the media and the election monitoring organization, especially their unwavering effort to come together and help out on how they will pursue democratic presidential elections. Okay, when it comes to election day, so as I've said, we have covered 147 polling stations covering the both urban and rural areas. So the voting, and we can really attest that election day was really peaceful and orderly. But however, there are several issues that we wanted to highlight. Actually, these are 3 issues. The first one is the inadequate accessibility for persons with disabilities and the elderly. The second is the compromised ballot secrecy due to actually improper placement of polling booths and the ambiguities regarding the role of police officer inside polling stations. But despite that, while these issues have significantly noted by our observers, it doesn't affect the overall integrity. So these issues can be highlighted in order to enhance the transparency, inclusiveness, and credibility of the future elections here in Sri Lanka. And for the campaign period, as we have covered the pre-election, at least on the 2 weeks that we are here in Sri Lanka, we have observed significant issues which we think should be addressed by the upcoming leaders, the president, and of course, probably in 2 or 3 months' time that parliamentary elections will happen. This is something to be addressed to solve at least or to mitigate what the problem that has been highlighted with regard to economic conditions, the governance reforms that they need to do in order to improve the elections. So during the campaign period and the pre-election, we have noted the issue or the problem on misuse of state resources. So as you have read in our statement also, we have cited the instances, at least on the part of institutional resources. We believe that it would not be fair to cover all as part of our methodology because we've been here in 2 weeks only, but we limited our methodology at least to see what is apparent, especially on what is present during the campaign period. With regard to the institutional resources, we have cited at least the use of the government vehicles, which were used for campaign purposes. The public welfare and infrastructure projects were rushed in key constituencies, seemingly to influence voter sentiment. And we have noted that despite the existing laws and codes of conduct, the rampant misuse of state resources rendered the power of the Election Commission of Sri Lanka weak in order for them to address these issues. But we also have noted that, or we really appreciate their efforts in addressing this because this issue has been in the 2019 elections also. But we believe part of the ANFREL recommendation is actually for the Parliament at least to address a very significant law to address this, for the Election Commission to include this issue on how they can address this particular abuse or misuse of state resources. The second would be on part of the objective also of ANFREL is that we have taken a look on the first implementation of the campaign finance law. We are really proud that they have passed this law because this has been part of the issues that came in during the 2019 election in order to at least address the level playing field. So in this campaign finance law, actually we have noted at least challenges in the implementation. We acknowledge that this is the first time that every stakeholders are implementing this law. And we have noted the loopholes, at least in the implementation. And part of the recommendation is to, for the Parliament to review and refine the Sri Lanka's campaign finance law to address the emerging challenges. Because we have noted that there are no categories of election paraphernalia or propaganda which the political parties and candidates should spend their money. So the categories would define what are allowed and not allowed. So it's not in the law also that's why we have noted that at least for future elections, they should have at least the categories of the lawful election propaganda and materials. Part of the recommendation also is to, for the Election Commission of Sri Lanka to develop robust monitoring mechanism. We acknowledge that in the issue of campaign finance, Asia is still a long game to follow or trace the money. But at least to practice transparency and financial accountability, monitoring would play a different game if there's an active implementation coming from Election Commission. An independent unit or an office would work in order to effective this implementation effectively. Next would be with regard to media. So ANFREL identified significant concerns regarding media independence and access during the election. So we have noted that state-run media heavily favored the incumbent, while the private media, often controlled by individuals with political affiliations, further distorted the coverage. But this lack of balanced reporting, we found it deprived voters of impartial information, undermining the fairness of electoral processes. Actually, this issue has been prominently discussed also during the 2019 elections, and right now we wanted to also highlight that this issue is a persistent one, and our part of the recommendation is for the media outlets to adopt at least stronger regulation and uphold ethical standards for responsible journalism. So greater support for independent journalism is also needed. At the same time, to practice that ensuring editorial independence and fair media representation to provide more transparent election reporting. Next would be the social media. So this is also a different kind of thing that we have noted. We did not do an actual social media monitoring because it's already the local observer groups have been doing for the longest time. But misinformation, disinformation were widespread during the campaign. Actually, we have noted when we arrived here, we did not see the posters or different materials that have been everywhere or posted in different places. So we have noted that the campaign is really happening in the social media. But with that findings, actually, ANFREL's recommendation, along with the local monitoring groups, there's a strong need for fact-checking initiatives to do pre-banking and at the same time to use a powerful tool in order to track the misinformation, disinformation, and different narratives, especially on the official and the affiliate pages of different political parties and candidates. We understand that the official social media pages, it can easily be tracked, but however, the loophole is on the affiliate pages. Everyone can easily create a social media page and to promote for or against a particular candidate. So it's part of really a challenging task that we acknowledge when it comes to social media monitoring. Next would be voter education. Yeah, so particularly on the voting mechanisms on preferential voting. So we have noted that, of course, preferential voting has been here for about 40 years, but we have noted that the focus remained on the procedural aspects rather than educating the voters on what is the importance of their right or why is it important to exercise the right of suffrage. But we recommend actually to expand the scope of voter education program to include the true meaning and essence of preferential voting because we have noted that there was a confusion among the public regarding the marking of the ballot, since voters can opt to select a candidate, putting a cross, or they will exercise the preferential voting by putting 1, 2, 3. So it has been an accepted practice to do the X, but there was still a confusion on how would they do the 1, 2, 3. But in this case, we really encourage everyone, especially what happened right now, that the second round of counting happened. So this is something to be addressed not only by the Election Commission of Sri Lanka, but also the local monitoring groups. When doing voter education, we need to show the repercussions in exercising the preferential voting, or what does it really mean when you exercise this kind of electoral system. And lastly, with regard to disenfranchisement, we have noted there are still key voting groups that have been disenfranchised, especially with the overseas workers. So this is something to do that the Parliament should take a look in order how to address this. The prisoners and the certain marginalized communities who were not able to participate in the elections. So we call on the Parliament and relevant authorities to address these gaps by introducing legal reforms and alternative voting mechanism. And lastly, for the post-election environment, of course, although concerns were raised when the second round of counting has started, even though the Election Commission of Sri Lanka did not post the official results yet, and despite having a peaceful election, we have also noted that the curfew imposed actually created at least a temporary chaos but it goes against to the, the findings that the elections was really peaceful. So, but despite these concerns, we have not noted any significant challenges on the post-election environment. And actually, we were happy to see with regard to the acceptance of results where all candidates were invited by the Election Commission of Sri Lanka. So it was a kind of good practice that you cannot see in other countries. So it's actually seeing the candidates being gathered is one way to promote the democratic spirit of the Sri Lankan citizens. So with these findings, yes, so ANFREL remains committed to supporting the democratic processes in Sri Lanka. And of course, we look forward to engage with different stakeholders, especially we are also eyeing to observe the parliamentary elections, which is upcoming. And we really thank everyone for not only attending this citizen observer rights discussion, but we really thank everyone for accepting ANFREL and accommodating ANFREL with all the stakeholders interviewed that we've requested in a span of 2 weeks. So yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prisa. I also would like to, if Dr. Rana wants to add something more before we go to the Q&A session. So after that, we will have around 15 minutes. If you have any questions, you can ask from the panelists.
Thanks, Tharindu, and thanks, Prisa, for summing up all the findings. But I think considering that we already started 15 minutes late, we should, request the audience to ask some questions if they have, and we are more than happy to address that. Thank you.
Yes, if you have any questions, you can raise your hand, and then someone from our technical team will bring the camera to, the mic to you. So we have one question from here. Yep.
Yeah, hi there. Thank you so much for putting this event on. My name's Matthew from the Australian High Commission. Just interested if you could explain a little bit what happened during the counting process. It seemed like, so many of us I think understood that the primary results would be announced in the early hours of Sunday morning, but it wasn't actually until later on Sunday that we started hearing about the first of those. And then secondly, the preferential counting seemed to begin ahead of the primary vote count being announced, which was another thing that contradicted the advice that I think many of us had received earlier. So just be interested in if we could dig into those issues, why they happened, what the go was there.
And we can go for another question if you have any others. And then, yes.
Yeah, post announcing of the results, the SJB party made an allegation that in the counting center there was sort of partial election officials who didn't allow them to stay there, and he was accusing that possibility of the ballot papers being sort of tampered with, because he said there was some markings with the pencils could have been erased and something could have been done. Did you observe any such things?
Yeah.
Hi, thank you for your question. Regarding the first question, while we observed the counting process as well, at least in the 8 provinces, we did realize that there was a delay, especially in the arrival of all the ballots, because again, the one important hurdle was also the geographical differences. So they did start a little late, but we did not find that it was not really problematic. It was not something which was really a concern. There was delay, but not a significant delay. And we feel that, they did really well even after that, but we were not happy with of course, the infrastructure of the counting centers, the kind of facilities which were provided, like no proper fans, it was not spacious enough. So it was more like on the infrastructural part, but as far as the efficiency is concerned, I think we did not really observe any major irregularities. And again, we did not directly observe that, but we are aware about these allegations. And they did say that they are going to take some legal action. We are not yet aware if they have moved forward with that, but we did not directly observe that. as far as we could observe, at least the voting process, as well as the counting process, it was like the officials were not impartial at all.
Yes, we have another question.
Yeah, it's actually the delays regarding not getting the results on time within the commission, but releasing them to the public through media. So that's where the confusion was building up. Do you think it's better the election commission at least announce the final result of the first count before going for the second counting without creating any confusion?
That's a good practice. I think ideally it should be done like that. Maybe you can add something to it.
Yeah, yes, that's also our stand there. Because we were also confused when the second round of counting happened because the first results was not declared by the Election Commission. It happened right after 1 hour or 2 hours. Yeah, so it was declared after that. But at least to get the perspective of the Election Commission, we asked them last night, why was it like that? So actually, their actual response is that they were rushing the second round, and they did not have the time to actually announce it because they were consolidating the counting and the results. So that was the response coming from them. I personally asked that yesterday. Yeah.
We agree there was lots of confusion and chaos, and there was also mismanagement, especially towards the end. This is, I think, the first time ever that Sri Lanka has actually gone to the second round. And I think it's a good learning for voters as well, because how many voters were important when the second round happened? Maybe 1% of Sri Lankans. So only they decided in the next round. So maybe this itself will create some awareness, especially about the preferential voting, which Sri Lankans are not accustomed to. Yes.
About that, sorry, one more question to that. When we checked with the commission that day on Sunday afternoon regarding this issue, one of the senior officials told us that that they are not supposed to release results in between, but they will gazette the final result. So that means after the second reading also, second counting as well. So are you all planning to recommend this thing to the commission in your last report or whatever?
Yeah, actually, it boils down to that this is because the first time that it happened. So it boils down to the experience. So it has something, actually it's a lesson learned, at least for the Election Commission of Sri Lanka, because communications, so our stand there actually is they should have addressed it in a timely manner. So it has something to do that they can improve if that will happen on the next elections. Yeah.
And we, of course, have planned to come up with a comprehensive report later at the end of November, but we wanted to release the interim findings, and obviously we need some more time to ponder over the other major concerns that we saw. So it would not be right, to just rush up to the conclusion. So we thought let's have the comprehensive analysis at the end.
After the official announcement of the second counting, NPP has released a video that claiming they have won before second counting results out. So we received that video as a media organization. So did you guys notice that? So I would like to know about that as well.
Actually, we did not notice that kind of video, but we are on the stand that that made the confusion because the Election Commission did not announce it. So
It was their official announcement. So most of media has reported it as their official announcement from the NPP party. That video claimed they have won already before the second counting happening. It's just after the official announcement from the Election Commission, so that's why I asked.
yeah. So actually, if that's announced, actually that made the confusion, no. So it has something to do with also addressing the public to avoid the confusion. So it it should have been a very timely updates, because when it sets in the second round of counting, so actually it is, it is very delicate to touch it. So yeah, that made the confusion. I would agree on that. Yeah.
I agree. It's a very delicate, it's a very sensitive period, right? And media, as well as all the stakeholders, including parties and candidates, they need to act responsibly. If this happened, I think this should not have happened ideally. It should not have been happened.
As we have...
Any questions before the election results? I think all the questions were...
Yeah, we have one more question from behind over there.
Thank you, and apologies, this is about the results again. But I just wanted to know whether Anfel had any observations around the circulation of the results, which were already going around social media and everything else. It ended up becoming a little bit like, having the scorecard of a cricket match and then watching it unfold in front of you, and you're just validating the results as opposed to learning the results from the media, because we've already got it through images which seem to have been taken and shared of the final result. Whether any views on how that impacts on the integrity of the process and any recommendations for the future?
I will just say it again. It should have been the Election Commission. They should have been providing a timely update, especially that they should have announced the first results in a timely manner. Actually, if that usually happens, if the Election Commission is silent or not responsive enough with regard to the clamor of the media, the political parties and the candidates. So it is something to do that they need to address and to communicate it more responsively to the media. Because media also are, they are the sources of reliable information. So they are relying to the Election Commission's information. So I would always go back that this is the mandate of the Election Commission to address different stakeholders in order to avoid that kind of confusion. Yeah.
Thank you.
We agree. It was like the duty of Election Commission. In a way, even though the elections were like very peaceful and nothing really happened, but we did see that there were some infrastructural issues, including this. Had the communication from the Election Commission been effective and timely, I think such situations would never have arisen.
Yes, we can only go for one more question maybe. Before that, we have another question from our online streaming. So the question is how Sri Lanka should narrow, optimize the election process by time saving and money saving, regardless following the all methods. So how the Sri Lankan election, the methods and the system can be more effective, and then what are the recommendations that ANFREL can provide when it comes to make the entire process more time saving and then more cost saving?
Actually, when it comes to time, Sri Lanka has been one of the fastest to declare election results. You have been so actually very responsive when it comes to that. But when it comes to resources, it has something to do that everyone should address. So everyone should take a look, because it has been the main issue for this presidential election. Against that backdrop of economic recovery, the political corruption, when it comes to resources, it is not only on the part of Election Commission. It is also on the mandate of the political parties and the candidates to report out transparently and to have financial accountability when it comes to their election expenditures. So actually, with regard to resources, it has something to do with all election stakeholders to use your time and resources wisely in order to put up a democratic election. You have something to add?
Okay, we'll entertain one more question, and
this,
then, yeah.
This is actually not a question, just for a clarification for all of you. Regarding this infrastructure thing, unfortunately, the EC, Election Commission, they didn't give any money for the polling stations. So that's the issue, because we basically, EC work with a very limited financial thing like a 10 billion Sri Lankan rupees. So I of course understand most of the schools and the temple, they don't have the fans and these kind of facilities. So that's one reason. If you really want to have good polling stations, so then somebody has to give money to upgrade their facilities. Unfortunately, election commission, even the government, I don't think within a very short period of time you can provide all these things. So that is the normal status at our schools and the temples and other places. That is one thing. The other thing is...
we did see all the officers sitting on the tiny
yes.
students' chairs, but they never complained.
But we do have good places, but unfortunately most of the people, they don't like to give those places as a polling station or the counting stations. Now as example, so we have a fantastic universities with all the facilities. Now none of the universities, they don't like to give our, premises for the counting centers because, behavior of our own people is not acceptable. So, and they might ruin all these things during the election time. So the other thing is, for the presidential elections, I am from the Sri Lanka Rupayani Corporation. I am the present chairman, the former vice chancellor of University of Sri Jawadanapura. So only the Rupayani Corporation and the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation has given the authority to release the official results by the constitution. But I think we have to be fair for the other channels. So we basically provide the clean feed. It's called the clean feed for all the channels to release the results. So therefore, what is the connectivity in between the EC and us is basically they have to double check all the values. If I say very correctly, the first postal vote release without the RWs or that particular party's number of vote received, that the mistake was done at the EC, Election Commission. So then we have informed to them, I think you all have done something wrong with this particular thing. So therefore they start double checking, maybe triple checking, the fourth time also checking. So that's the one reason. If you really want to, have a fantastic method, so you have to go for the digitization of the voting pattern. But most of the Sri Lankan people, especially the elderly set, so they are not believing the computer system. They think there's a nice word in our system, computer Jilmart. So they think that there is a one person inside the computer and the person is marking and doing something bad for this thing. That is number 3. So therefore you have to educate people. So actually we are talking all these things since 2003 up to last year, how to improve our own, methodologies. The last one, this preferential voting system, I really want to tell this one because this is the first time we have practiced this one. But in 2005 election, if anybody can remember, I don't think most of these people can. I don't know where were you all. So at that time, the fight is so much narrow than or closer than this year. So at that time, before the official results release, one politician came to the Sri Lanka Rupayani Corporation at that time and he announced, don't worry, Mr. X has won the election. Because the people got confused. This time, the biggest challenge was this social media. They have released the results well before the finalizing. They said NPP has got 7.1 million votes with the 52.3% percentage. So then the people get confused because they thought that definitely the NPP has won with the more than 50% votes, but we knew that they are not going to get that because if it is three parties are contesting, it's extremely difficult mathematically get 50%.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the clarifications. And then with that, I think we will...
I'll just add probably on the part of the recommendations because you have relayed our recommendations and clarification. But actually what can the Election Commission of Sri Lanka can do in order to improve the voting experience, to improve the infrastructure, to partner with the malls, to the private companies, especially those who have owners of the mall. This has been the practice in other Asian jurisdictions because malls have been more accessible. So it has also a colder place to facilitate the elections, and it has been happening in every other countries. So it has something to do to check the kind of polling stations also, and probably, yeah, I forgot the other one, but probably I will discuss it later.
It's best to learn from the best practices around the world, and we also need to see what are the best practices when it comes to Sri Lanka. Because to me, there were like lots of temples, like the religious site, which also became the polling stations. Like, you know, this might be an issue. So we need to understand, like, you know, culturally what is important and what are the best practices which Sri Lanka can adopt. And with this, I think Tharinto is already restless.
Yeah. Raya, thank you very much for all the questions, and then we will also have more time after the this event, so you can talk to them, and then you know, if you have any questions, you can raise those questions as well. So with that, I think we will conclude the first part of today's session, and then we will start with the second part. Thank you very much, Breeza. Thank you very much, Rana. So you also can access, for those who are watching online, so you can access the ANFREL's, the full interim statement, interim report in anfrel.org, our website. Okay. And then we have seen those observer groups have been observing and then monitoring different aspects of the electoral process, like during the pre-election time, and then the abuse of state resources, the media monitoring. There were a lot of initiatives from the civil society itself. So today we called some of those the initiatives, the civil society organizations who conduct the citizen observation, to reveal their findings and then have a discussion with them, and also to have their perspective, their views on the electoral process. So for that, we will start with, since we have two, the speakers going to have the presentation, so we will call them to the stage first. So, and then after that, we also can call the rest of the speakers to the stage for their part, and then we will have a discussion and then the Q&A time after that. First, I would like to call Mr. Manjula Gajanayaka, Executive Director of Institutes for Democratic Reforms and Electoral Studies, IRES, to the stage. And also I would like to call Mr. Darshata Gamage, the Specialist Elections and Information Integrity in hashtag generation. So we'll start with Mr. Manjula and Mr. Darshata, and then we will follow the rest of the organizations when they are done with their presentations. Thank you very much. So let's go ahead with Mr. Manjula. Yeah, thank you. So in the first round, each the group have around 5 minutes to do the initial presentation, and then later we will have the discussions with them.
Okay, thank you very much for having me. Anyway, we have only 5 minutes to explain everything. It was a 56 days campaign period of Sri Lanka. Summarizing within 5 minutes is just like a marathon. Anyway, let me to read out this presentation without adding anything. If so, it will so long, maybe 25 minutes or 30 minutes. What happened in the Sri Lankan presidential election? If you are asking me to summarize it, the second successive executive president at the age of 75 vacated office following the 75th election held on this beautiful island. Mr. Disanayaka Mudyansalage Anura Kumara Disanayaka, aged 56, then assumed duties as the 9th executive president of Sri Lanka. Then concluding remarks on the presidential election, then everyone asking our conclusion on this. I'm a bit hesitate to tell something because we are heading to most critical parliamentary election. You know, parliamentary election will hold on based on preferential voting system. then it might be a critical, deadly second world war. Anyway, let me to say you may have read Monster Calls, written by Patrick Ness. He included this nice, beautiful word in there. Son, his father said, learning forward. Stories don't always have happy endings. Then we are looking forward. Anyway, however, this logistic operation is a remarkable achievement, creating a peaceful environment and a satisfactory conclusion through the collaborative efforts of the election management body of Sri Lanka, the Sri Lanka police, election observation groups, the media, and political parties and independent candidates. What we did, IRES as our organization, IRES was alert on whole day. We well-planned voter education session in 5 selected districts at 53 locations. What we did, election violence, reporting non-violence of election laws, analyzing media behavior during election times, including content analysis of editorial and feature articles, monitoring campaign activities of 39 candidates, establishing cost monitoring unit to observe campaign expenditure. What next? IRES will create a reader-friendly, accessible format on expenditure report to be uploaded by CSL later. IRES will publish its final report before the commencing of the next parliamentary election. This is our first observation, the evolved of these candidates parade. It started with 6 candidates in 1982. Now it has evolved 39. Maybe next time, if we are not imposing some kind of regulation, it will go up to 86. Then we have to do something on this, starting with 6 and ending 39. Okay, second observation is that nature of campaign. Actually, we did a small research during the campaign period after submission of nomination. These are the findings. Observed organized campaign rallies inviting minimum of 10 supporters. I'm talking on 35 candidates. Actually, there were only 15 candidates organizing campaign rallies inviting minimum of 10 candidates. Candidates crossed over to support key candidates during the campaign period. Already did 3 candidates. Almost disappeared 3 candidates. We got the list from the Election Commission of Sri Lanka. We called them. We tried to catch them. Nowhere. Then actually 3 almost disappeared. Candidates not engaged in campaign via social media. At least 4 candidates don't have any of social media accounts. This is the observation 3. It's actually that under the campaign expenditure law, then estimated expenditure breakdown by candidate. We already fed all the details to Ape Chandasalli meet led by TISL. Our leader Nadishani Pereira is here. Anyway, comrade Mr. Anura Kumar Disanayaka spent only 16 million for newspapers, radio channels, and so newspaper, radio channels, and TV shows. However, you can see Mr. Sajid Premadas and other candidates have spent more money. Then the limitation is actually 1,868 million rupees. You can see that if not winning this guy, if winning any other person, there will be a case, because I know that as an organization, at least 2 candidates have exceeded the campaign limit. Then these are the same factor actually, that interestingly, Silratana Thero also spent something. Yeah. Observation 4, reduced political influence can work wonders, allowing electors to witness the natural capability and impartiality of the Election Commission of Sri Lanka and the Sri Lanka police. I would say that there's no political influence in this time after 2015, when IGP, Mr. Ilangakon was there. Luckily, we didn't have IGP. That is the wonderful, luckiest thing we had in last election. Final remarks, conclusion, none of the candidates are encouraging their supporters to violate election laws or create chaos among ethnic minorities, as occurred in 2019. The ECL and police must continue their investigations into public officers who facilitated the misuse of public property in support of the independent candidates. A new constitutional provision should be introduced to limit the powers of presidential candidate when they are contesting while still serving as the executive president. Introduction of advanced voting system is must. Let the media establish their own regulatory methods, and if they violate it is up to the citizen to reject them. Imposing new laws and additional regulation for control is both meaningless and harmful. Additional word, thanks to all the political party supporters who attended rallies, listened to their candidates, and contributed to creating a historic political movement. The newly elected president, Mr. Comrade Andrukumar Disanayake, won with the dedication and support of hundreds of women who demonstrated unwavering commitment to his cause through their passion and enthusiasm. Therefore, we hope he will give them the recognition they deserve. Honestly, we did this presentation, we prepared it before assuming duties by our third Prime Minister, Dr. Harini Amarasuri. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Manchula, for the insights. And then now we will move to Darshata. So from the hashtag generation is mostly conducted observation on digital media. So it's time for you.
Yeah. Thank you very much for giving us this space. So as hashtag generation, we mainly observe the online spaces, primarily focusing on social media, and mainly Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok, which are more predominantly used platforms by Sri Lankan audience. And in terms of this election, we did 3 forms of activities. First one is the social media monitoring for harmful narratives, including hate speech, disinformation, harassment, as well as other election law violations. And we did the similar operations from 2019 onwards, and also in collaboration with PAFFREL, who have supported us in this initiative throughout. The second is similar to most other organizations. We are also part of the Chandasali Mitre, which looks at the campaign finance related expenditure, and we are monitoring the online space where we can for that. And third is also we've done communications and awareness raising, as well as fact-checking related to disinformation through this process. The presentation, I'll just run you through some of the key trends that we've observed during this past period. And if you've already seen this at some point, I'm sorry if I'm repeating certain things, but maybe first I'll share some numbers in the next slide. So during different periods, these are the numbers that we have shared. And maybe one significant feature is that during the silent period, over 1,500 ads we were able to report to the Election Commission. And this was across multiple candidates. We will share maybe a more clean data, like a more detailed analysis at a later point. But just want to say that there was violations throughout all of these durations. So of course, we were initially looking at violations of media guidelines and code of conduct, and this included use of images of children, minors, religious institutions, as well as national symbols. And as you can see, there were a lot of such violations, and that happened across all major campaigns. The other side of things was online gender-based harassment. And again, I think it was quite obvious. And this was also, mind you, without a single female candidate. So also imagine an instance where there will be female candidates and what sort of harassment that can come into this place. So a lot of supporters as well as family members of these candidates were attacked for their for the targeting the candidates. Ethno-nationalist narrative, so which also comes to us in comparison with the 2019 election, because there was a lot of, the campaign was based on the prospects of ethnic religious issues as well as the issue of national security, but this time it was relatively less. But we would also kind of made observations that ethno-nationalist narratives still had a place in this narrative, even though it was not as big as it was earlier. And this also kind of leaves the question of what the parliamentary election would look like for us. And I think a bigger trend that was, I think all of you would have observed, is that there were polls, surveys, results much later, and some of these were completely fabricated, some of them were taken out of context, and also using in-app polls. And these were widely discussed on social media, and we believe this would have had an impact in some of the decision-making process of some of the people on social media. The key trend of this election was disinformation, and we believe that these disinformation narratives were also very much organized, and they were basically part of some of the campaigns that were running. And these included from fabricated letters to news items, as well as things like social media bans being imposed by the Election Commission and so on. So there were multiple narratives, but the main and a lot of other misleading areas, edited videos of speeches by candidates and supporters are there. So on social media, disinformation was a key player of these campaigns. In line with that, there were attempts to kind of cause fear of party supporters causing harm and havoc in different areas, as well as the potential of a militia group being active post-elections, and these were also predominant in social media, and they were also very much organized campaigns. Then, of course, during the silence period, there were interviews done with main candidates from Indian media channels. So it was also very interesting to see how they've kind of maybe bypassed the local law in some ways. But also what sort of influence would that have, especially main popular Indian channels as well as South Indian channels posting this content on social media. I think one of the bigger questions from the beginning of the election period was the use of AI. And AI was used, and I mean, some of them were just for campaigning, which is not necessarily violations, but there were certain videos, images, doctored voice recordings of former President Trump, as well as other edited ones that were used, certain AI technologies. But it was not rampant. It was not very widely used, but there was use of AI on social media during this election. So that was more the pre-election period, and this was during the silent period. As I said, there were multiple ads that have been used. And I mean, some of the ads also used, like the central bank, governor of the central bank, who's not necessarily a politician. And there were also negative campaigns, as well as ads that did not carry disclaimers, which usually Facebook would follow. So there were certain ads like that. And some of the disinformation pieces were also promoted as ads as well on these platforms. This particular video, popular YouTuber who has been causing a lot of controversy, but during the silence period, he published this video saying there's a plan to hack the computer system. And this video got a lot of reach within a very short time on YouTube. And we believe that was a very problematic statement to be made. And on the election day, there was a lot of disinformation about different political actors and their supporters running away from the country, fleeing. Some of them actually went abroad, but some of them was disinformation. And of course, the images and videos are from the political, like from the voting booths, like the polls. Media was, I think, instructed not to publish anything, but almost videos and photos of almost all candidates voting were released before 4 p.m., before the end of the voting, and we could widely observe them on social media. And again, there was a list of different family members, supporters of politicians leaving the country at different times, different airlines being mentioned. And also this video was shared on TikTok, but it was, if you look, the date is from July, but they're kind of reshared to show that there's some tension or kind of incidents that are taking place in different parts of the country. And there's also, I mean, more like promotions that are taking place of guessing who's going to win and sort of things like that during that period. Post-election, I think, like it was rightly mentioned, there was a lot of unofficial results that were kind of shared, and also the confusion about the results, how it was being released, was widely seen on social media. And post-election, one of the key trends that we saw was this whole separation between who voted to whom and connecting it to the national, the ethnic identities, and kind of a lot of hate speech, because as you said, pre-election period did not have a lot of hate speech, but post-election there was a lot of hate speech, and indirect, maybe incitement to violence as well. And this was very common, and also targeting the Tamil communities from the north and the east, as well as the Malayalam community. Broadly, we could see a lot of these sort of narratives that were kind of shared throughout this period. And also, we've already seen targeting women, especially including now Prime Minister Harini Amarasuriya, and their policies. So this has already started, and we believe these trends may continue to till the parliamentary elections as well. And one of the biggest challenges that we've had is also responses from the social media platforms. We worked with the Election Commission, but we believe the responses were not as fast enough as we wanted, and we believe the Election Commission should also kind of work more closely with the platforms in kind of preparing these processes and kind of getting them to really agree, but platforms should also kind of respond more proactively in these measures. Since my time is up, I'll just end there. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much, Darshita. So, yeah, now we would like to call the other speakers also to the stage, and we would like to ask help from the staff from the hotel. No, you can just stay, and then they will add some couple of other chairs. So. To the stage, and also the Professor Arjuna Parakrama, the Chief Operation Officer of the Center for Monitoring Electoral Violence, the CMEV, and also Mr. Harendra Bandara, the legal head of Campaign for Free and Fair Election CAFFE, and also the Ms. Nadishani Pereira, the Executive Director of Transparency International. Thank you very much for joining us here today. Despite, like very busy schedule that you all have, even the elections is over. I know that like most of them are working on the reports and then the post-election activities and all. So let's move to Mr. Rohan Hettiarachchi, the Executive Director of PAFFREL, and he's the Chairman of ANFREL as well. So I would like to get to you, and then like maybe we know the PAFFREL have deployed thousands of observers across the country, the long-term, short-term, and then the pre-election, election day, and observing the post-election situation as well. So what is your thought about the electoral process this time?
Thank you, Taridu. Good evening to everyone. My voice is a little gone. But anyway, I don't think that I have nothing to share with you, because I have already speak out many occasions with you guys. And I will make it very short. I think this is the peaceful, they were peaceful elections which we had in Sri Lankan history. I have been in this sector almost 30 years now, from 1999 full time, but even before 1994. So Sri Lanka, the elections always in the past, which was heavily violence, every elections. But I'm happy to share with you, because these elections, even the pre-elections period, cooling period, elections day, post-elections, so far we have not at least one no is a zero violence in the post-elections period. So I think as a Sri Lankan, we all can happy. At least now we are managed to have a peaceful elections. But there are still more to go, and there are many other areas where we need to add. As Tarindu said, that we have deployed around 5,000 observers, postal observations, long-term observers, stationary and mobile. Actually, our observation start prior to the elections, they announced the election date, because as an observer group, we know, I think most of you know that how the government start their campaign, and other political parties also start their campaign. Even last year, they have scheduled their program from last year onwards. So the area where we need to address still the misuse of the government resource and the government power. That was in the large scale, even in these elections. The government, I don't want to repeat this again and again, because we have been talking this for a long time now, but still, whoever run in the country, they use largely the government resource and the government power. Even just one day before the announcement of the elections, the government, they have passed the cabinet paper to recruit 50,000 graduates. So that is how the government works. Even one day before the postal voting, they increase, or rather, they were stating that with the cabinet approval, they are going to increase 24% of salary, from 24% to 50% salary increment for the government officers. We do have 1.4 million government officers. So it will make huge impact for their decisions on postal voting. I don't know, I mean, when you look at the result, it can be different, but that's the way the government did. And 2 months back, they were saying they can't increase even single rupee, because there are a lot of demand from the trade union asking 10,000 rupees increment, but they said they can't even increase 1 rupees. But just before, after 2 months, magically, they were stating that government has approved to increase the salary for 25%, 5,000 to 50,000 in cash. So, I mean, even the university, the professor with the same university, Javadanapura, I checked with, because the government announced again, they increased the Mahapola, which is the lower income university students are getting some per diem or some payment. They have not paid from January to September, but they were supposed to pay 5,000 per month. They couldn't pay it. But they just say that they increased 5,000 to 7,500. So this is the way the government was used their power. Not only the present government, the former government. It was the experience over the decades now. So those are the areas where, that is one of the critical areas where we need to address in the future. And secondly, I think Tarindu, the Anfel team also mentioned that a lot of people did not get a chance to mark their ballot on the elections day, including the observers, including the media. There are at least 500,000 to 1 million people who are inside the country. If they are not able to go to their polling station physically, they can't mark their ballot. So there is no system for them to mark the ballot. We have been discussing this over decades now. But fortunately now the elections commissions, with our pressure, our in a sense not only PAFFREL, I think observers group all together, even the international observers, now it has gone up to the cabinet. I'm sure the next presidential elections, I will make sure as observer group, it will come through within the next 5 years period, whoever run in the country. That has to be addressed. And again, there are about 2 million people overseas. They are the people who are bringing the money here. We are spending their money. They are the people who brought here the dollars, but they couldn't exercise their right. So those are quite critical areas where we need to address. And I think Darshita and Manjula also addressed this social media. That also very critical. They mislead the voters. Misinformation, disinformations, largely disseminate. Even the result before the Elections Commission announced the result, there were so many social media pages carrying out the messages. But I think I need to address that one of your questions regarding the before the announcement of the final result, or rather second counting. I was in the Elections Commission at that time. I think as Professor Sudanta mentioned, the press report release was not correct. And their answer was that they have done it properly, but somehow it not appeared in the media, some technical mistakes. And also, I saw I think it was Vijita Herat, the JVP, the MP, that he was announced that his announcement was the gap between the major, them and the SJB is somewhere around 1.3 million, because we don't have experience in the past with marking the second, third preference. So they can't reach to that amount, even if we calculate the second amount. I think that was the message from the JVP side. So, but anyway, so those are the areas where we need to address, and also we need to address the independence of, we are talking about the independence of the elections commissions, but they don't have a financial independence. I think you all witnessed that we couldn't have a local elections almost 2 years now, and finally we had to go to court also. We got the court order because of the finance. The government did not release the money. So no point just to have an independent commission per se if they are not financially independent. Not only the elections commission, other commissions also. And in this election there are at least, I can't say exact figure, but at least some thousands of people could not mark their ballot because their name was not in the list. Because we don't have a base registry here. So due to COVID, I think there was no proper voter registrations. They just update or upgrade the same registry. I know personally some of our colleagues also could not mark their ballot because of these administrative issues. So we are demanding, or we are rather requesting the policymakers to have a base registry at least for 10 years period. Then we can, if there is newcomers, we can update it time to time, annually or regularly. So that is also area. And we don't have an election calendar. And we need to address that. So, and the disabled people, and we have been working with the Elections Commission. I will stop there, Tarindu. We have been working with this area. This time we were managed to issue 5,000 ID cards to get easy access to the polling stations. But there are a lot of difficulties, as Professor Sudanta mentioned. We have to use the same places as our polling stations. But I know we have experience. I'm fortunate to be observed in Asia because of part of the ANFREL. A lot of countries, they are set up the temporary shelters for disabled people to mark their ballot. I really appreciate the Elections Commission. They have, they try their level best to give some special facilities, but still, according to the data, 1.6 million, I don't know whether it is the right figure, but next elections, after 5 years, at least we have to address those issues during next 5 years period. I will stop there.
Thank you. Thank you very much for even talking about the electoral reforms that needs to take place to have more transparent, inclusive election in the country. And then let's move on to Professor Arjuna Parakrama. He is the Chief Operations Officer of the CMEV. Yeah, floor is yours.
Thank you. Okay, yeah, thank you. Yeah, well, I will be very sort of brief about what I want to say. I think at the outset, CMEV says that the violence and the violations did not compromise the integrity of the election. But having said that, I think there is no room for complacency or for grand narratives about this being wonderful. We recorded, for instance, 223 incidents of violation on election day. And when you compare that with the 854 that we had recorded in the month prior, this is fairly serious. Right, and I think it's important, some of the incidents are especially troublesome. I can go into details if you wish during the Q&A. But I think it's wrong to lower the bar to the point of absurdity. I mean, we could certainly, CMEV started with the by-and-by elections, so we could certainly trot out the by-and-by elections, even if there is killing on the street, to say that was worse and therefore this is better. So I think we need to be able to collectively say that there is room for serious improvement, and the key areas, I think Rohana pointed it out, and I think it's important to note, like the Sheraton, the Election Commission is impervious to disability. So, I think we need to be able to recognize that we had a number of cases where people had disabilities and they were asked to climb stairs or go through various areas. That's completely unacceptable, and that's zero tolerance. It's not about we can do better, we don't have the money, somebody else has given something else, zero. It seems to me similarly, I think we had an agreement, I think Rohana will bear me out, that there should be no polling centers in places of religious worship. We had polling centers, and in each of those, there was influencing of the voter that we have recorded. So I think the point is, there are some things, very clear things that need to be done, that must be done. There is also the point that was raised repeatedly, but I'll say it again. We are in CMEV trying to measure the impact, not necessarily the numbers. So when I give you the numbers, that's an indication. But we did have 125 serious violations during the campaign period, and those have an impact. As has been pointed out, the impact of the president, the then president, deliberately violating the law of the land and also completely ignoring the Supreme Court as well as the Election Commission had a huge impact. There is no question about that. And that impact continued right through. So I think we need to be able to recognize that for a future election, for the parliamentary election, the multiply effect will be huge. So we need to be clear that this is not good enough. It may have been better than previously, but it's not good enough. And certainly there are areas that we need to improve. As I said, the revamping of polling centers, so they are not in areas where there is a bias. They have to be done in such a way that they are disabled friendly, that they are responsive, that we even have issues with the relationship of gender and so on. We had recorded a number of situations where the polling center was so inappropriate that the supervisors could see who was being voted for, and that the complaint was that they have no other space. Those are not acceptable, and those are things that we can really do clearly and carefully. There's also questions of the law. The campaign finance law needs to be really looked at again. It's actually just at the moment, I know my finance channel will disagree, but the moment it is a law and therefore important as a law, but in terms of implementation, it leaves huge problems. It makes the Election Commission merely a clearinghouse, and there is no provision for them to take a case out. Similarly, there are aspects of the law itself, the Presidential Election Act number 15 of 1981, and in general, which needs to be refined and so on. We also have the need for caretaker arrangements if the incumbent is also a candidate, as we have seen. So I think there are a number of issues to look forward to, particularly with the parliamentary election. To summarize again, core issues include the problem that the president at that point was above the law and openly in defiance. I think there is something to recognize that open defiance has a huge negative impact. That may be one of the reasons why the voter turnout was not as much as one would have expected. There's also a problem in the plantation areas and in the areas in the north where there's a military, because I'm not going to divulge information, but there are clearly problems. For example, in the plantation, the circular, the temporary identity cards were issued by the plantation management company and not the normal mechanism through the Gram Nilgiri, which was again protested. But I think that, I'm going to end with that there is, above all this, a bedrock of majoritarianism which we share, which we participate in, which makes most of this discourse biased. And I don't want to, I'm hoping we can discuss, but I think even if you look at the material provided by hashtag, we can see clear examples where majoritarianism is coded as something else and Tamil ethno-nationalism is coded as nationalism. So it's an interesting issue, and I will leave it to that, say, yes, this was done and finished and we have a popular public choice as the president, but there's a huge amount of work to be done. There is no room for complacency, and there are clear things that can be implemented tomorrow, if not today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the insights. And then let's move on to Mr. Harendra Banagala. He's the head of legal at CAFFE, the Campaign for Free and Fair Elections.
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. Actually, I'm sorry for they invited to my head of Executive Director, Mr. Manas Makin, but he's not feeling today. That's why I'm participate here today. Actually, I am totally agreed with my colleagues. This is the most peaceful election compared with the past. But our view is cannot be concluded that the election was completely free and fair. Same peaceful, then there were reports on violation, so many violation of the election laws regarding the, we mentioned like that so many opening ceremonies and the so many goods, so many good distributions, and also the so many transfers and all that is during the election period. And also basically we are conclude that the overall our what we done is our election observation is we are deployed the 26 long-term district coordinators of the overall district of Sri Lanka, and also the 160 long-term observers by each electorate, and 1,750 election day monitors. We have observed that overall election system of those days. Actually, the problem is so many people are not going to increase involved in the violation of this during the election periods, but the same people are involved to violate the election laws. It's the example is so many the main candidates are doing their house-to-house campaign by like a rally. According to law, the 5 people are going to the house-to-house campaign, but so many main candidates and their parties, there's more than 1,000, more than 100 and more than 150 people went to the house-to-house campaign. There's a totally illegal matter, and also they are provided to this is our situation, this is our rally like that, because that this is not suitable for our situation, because this is not totally violation of the election law. And other thing is we monitored that the previous occasion of the announced the election, they expend a huge amount of their propaganda series. Actually, according to the Election Expenditure Act, to start by the calculate the amount is whatever it is dated by the mentioned gazetted in the election commission. But the parties are done by before that, the huge amount using their propaganda issues. That's the other things. Actually, I have to thank my colleague. He led us to make a Salli meter, and we supported to the overall parties. The TRS will lead to that matter. But the problem is we got some issues and we got some information, what are the amounts and all that we updated to and uploaded to that Salli meter. We are waiting for the final amounts and final accounts for the candidates, what are they going to do. Another thing is that the Manjula said that there is 39 candidates done by contested by the last election, but you know that there's only 10 candidates are making their election propaganda system. Even the other candidates are not there using their media time also. Actually, the overall candidates have to the media time 15 minutes or something, but they are 45 minutes, but they are, thank you so much, Professor, that 45 minutes. They are not using that the more than only 10 candidates are using the media time. That's the we are the several observation like that. More than that mentioned is Manjula and also the Rohana like this. And this is our observation. And the conclude the after finally the CAFFE is conducted 2 programs parallel in the election monitoring system. Is the past situation. The first one is the voter education programs. So the 18+ program is that it is the more effective both that the newcomers and the first voters of this election. We educate how to vote, what is the vote, what is the importance of their vote, and what is the electoral system valuable things. And other is we went to the grassroots levels and local authorities members, the former members. We are conducted to the say yes to peaceful election. Our observation is previous that the most of violations are involved by the grassroots levels politicians, not the high levels. So we are conducted the program to the several areas of the outside of the Colombo and also the every district, including the 8 districts of Sri Lanka, island-wide, with the grassroots levels, the local local government authorities and local government members. This is the more valuable program for to reduce their violence and all that. That is done by our conclusion and also is our CAFFE. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those observations. And then the last but not least, we have Nadeshani Pereira. She's the Executive Director of Transparency International Sri Lanka. They have done a quite remarkable job to gather all the data from the other observer groups and then the TISL itself, putting up the campaign expenditure, ape chanda salli meter, right? So yes, so it's your time to share the TISL observations and then your insights about the elections.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Before we go to Chanda Salimi today, maybe I'll talk a little bit about as TISL for since 2004, our focus during the election period has been monitoring the misuse of public resources, because it is a severe form of corruption, not only during election but throughout all the time in the country. However, during election, it can distort how free and fair the election can be. And just as my colleagues here have pointed out, we observed rampant misuse of state resources and of all categories. State resources span from buildings and grounds to public officials. They are state resources. Their time, their expertise belong to the people. They cannot use their time and also their ability to influence to support a candidate. Now, according to the law that governs them and the establishment code, there are categories that they are divided to. So if you are a senior public official, you are not allowed to engage in any sort of campaigning, even off office hours. So you cannot use your social media account to promote a candidate or to talk against a candidate, and those, but all officials during office hours certainly cannot be going on social media and campaigning. Now we got evidence with screenshots, and what we did was, as a first step, we actually wrote back to these people and said, look here, you're not supposed to do this. This is unlawful. And there we saw many of them also not actually being aware as well. I'm not talking about very senior people who ought to know, but some of them seem to be lacking that awareness about their level of political rights they have. And what we said is, if these posts are not taken down, we will have to write to your supervisor, and of course next level would be Election Commission. But of course, we also saw public officials engaging in, physically going and engaging in campaigning for different candidates, going from house to house, going for rallies and things like that. And of course, the buildings, and of course, interesting ways of doing this. And pardon me for those who are hearing this for the second time. We've been giving these updates. But for example, you get a public ground, and a candidate wants to book it, pay and get it. And then that person is told, no, this candidate has booked this for 2 months. So, you can't do that with state resources. So there are different ways that the abuse happens. If you look at, these are known things, public vehicles, now loads of buses being used. We had to file RTIs to find out whether payment was made, and as you know, they will then take all the time that is allowed in the RTI to get back to us. We file RTI, and I need to say this, to the Sri Lanka Air Force with regard to the helicopters, to know whether the candidates paid, because they did go on media and told one media organization everybody paid. So, but by that time we filed a RTI, because that's part of our process of verifying complaints. We have got a response say rejecting our RTI, saying that TISL is not a citizen, so cannot give information. So now our RTI Act clearly defines a person as to include incorporated persons, and our act is not a new act, and we've been getting so many RTI requests and information, and now to give this excuse, it just shows that why are you worried? If everybody paid, why are you worried to release information to TISL? Like, what's the problem? And coming up with an excuse like that, it will be very interesting to take it to the RTI Commission and get them to answer this. But just to let you know about information sharing. Now about other more interesting, I would say more sophisticated forms of abuses. If you take government projects that are meant to run over a couple of years, were asked to be completed in 2 months, in 1 month, or somehow you need to have a ceremony, handing over ceremony for an incomplete project, half completed roads, hilarious stories. That side is still being constructed, this side handing over ceremony. Whom are you trying to cheat? These are public funds, and also this is abuse of public power. So the declaration, the announcement that cabinet decisions were taken to give various forms of relief and pay hikes for targeting different voter groups. That was the absolute abuse of your power, of the power of the president and the government at that point, which we highlighted. So I would say, with regard to the incidents regionally of this different kind of state resources being abused, when we get information from our observers, we've deployed covering all the electorates, and we have also the app website called apesali.lk, which citizens could also use. Then whenever we complained to the Election Commission after verification, they actually took swift action if we got the information before the violation is about to happen. Like say, we get to know, okay, in 2 hours, this ceremony is going to happen in this place, or, then we can take swift action, and they actually either mobilize the police or their officers to go and stop such incidents. I think the lack of action is with regard to, or we are yet to see, is with regard to accountability for violations already done. See, at the end of the day, we can all talk about this, but if there are no repercussions for all the officials and the politicians who abused state resources, abused their power or the resources, at the end of the day, after this election, with all these statistics and international monitoring groups saying it out loud that this was a concern, then why would then at the next election anybody bother? Because, some people will talk and go, and we always talk. So, let them talk, that's what we do. But nothing, no problem, because no legal action. So I think the new president and his team has vowed to, enforce law and things like that. And we hope that the law will be, respected. There's no point if there are no repercussions for violations. So this, I think, is something that we will continue to advocate because it is a serious problem. In a country with an economic crisis, state resources are precious and they're funded by the taxpayers' money, which is like, we feel like blood being taken out of us these days, the tax rates and the VAT and everything, and that money being used for somebody's campaign and to distort our votes. It's not a joke, and I think we need to continue to campaign, advocate for accountability. Now, on the Chandasali meter and on our campaign finance regulation law, I don't disagree with Professor that the law has some major problems. And this is also why we came up with this, tool, which is a website. I mean, if there is a possibility and if your system is connected to the internet, it'll be nice for you to just log into Chandasali Meetere on Google. You just type that. But if not, it's fine. But you can have a look. We are still uploading. Now, this is the first time, and we came across lots of challenges, kind of completely stressed me during the last 2 months to get this going. However, we know that the candidates, according to the law, they are submitting an income and expenditure report to the Election Commission after 21 days after results. And the whole idea was that we have done some monitoring so that that report can be verified. See, verified not only for the total, whether you cross the line, the limit, also verified whether you are giving all the disclosures. For example, if you go to our Chandasali Meetere, every entry, now all these figures that Manjula gave, for every one of those huge amount of millions that the candidates, his team has tirelessly posted evidence. Advertisement per advertisement, which channel, when, how long, and with a piece of evidence, a photo, which is why it's taking so much time to upload. We're talking about lots of photos, video clips, radio, it's like a radio, that's an audio clip, right? But with all that evidence, and we had a limited scope of what can be monitored, if those things are not in the detailed expenses of the candidate's report, then again they are violating the law. So because they have to give full disclosure. And what our whole tool is based on minimum estimated cost. Estimated by the quotes we got from all the different suppliers, quotes that Manjula's team got from the TV, radio, newspaper stations, and the other organizations. We all divided the 160 electorates among the 4 organizations and engaged ground observers to monitor things like public campaigns, the rallies you see. And then, of course, hashtag monitored social media. Again, they had to give post by post, and that's why it's taking time. And then IRES looked after mainstream media. So again, we are not saying that we are showing the actual value. When the details are put through data science, we created a formula using these codes so that a minimum amount comes. And if somebody has crossed that minimum amount, then you've definitely crossed the line, because you actually have probably spent much more than that. So we are still tirelessly working, and we hope we can finish it in time for a good comparison. But this was also piloting. This tool can be adapted for the future elections. The challenge would be the large number of candidates you have to follow, so we need to come up with a way to do that. But I think it has analytics and many things to take from it. I think, again, we wanted the candidates, the people, the government, the law enforcement, and the Election Commission to take the law seriously. If there was absolutely no monitoring, what's the point of having a campaign expense regulation law? I mean, it'll be just one of those things that Sri Lanka signs and, just there, nobody takes it seriously. I mean, already if candidates have very openly spent this amount of money, because they know Facebook advertisements can be easily tracked. TV, radio advertisements, and still they've spent only on those this much, because they are pretty sure we are not going to catch them. Right? So this is something, so stand with us, because we need the support of citizens and other parties who have different leverage to sort of push for greater accountability so that our electoral process will have greater transparency and integrity, and I suppose we can share learnings with the other countries in the region as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for all the insights, and then even explaining about how the process has worked when it comes to bringing all the amounts and then the observations together into one place. So I think we can have, we are running out of time as well, since we started like 15 minutes late. So hopefully we can have another 10 minutes of Q&A time. So we can have a couple of questions. So our panelists will be able to answer.
I'm James from India. I want to suggest a positive one. We have 2 months' time before the parliament election, and I don't know whether it's a short time. We have to increase the participation of women in the parliament. I mean, it used to be 6 to 8% before, and now today it has come down to 5.11. Whether it is possible for civil society groups to really enhance the participation of women. 5.11 is a very small score compared to in South Asia. Despite the fact Sri Lanka has the highest in Human Development Index in the whole of South Asia, literacy and everything. And I remember, I mean, Rohana knows, in 1990s, there were a lot of gun-related violences. And we had a survey in the communities where people said, we are not participating in election because there is gun-related violence. Now in 1919, not even a single gun-related incident. So there is no reason why women cannot participate. I think we have to promote that. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. And also I would like to ask that, like, please raise your questions. The remarks maybe we can discuss after the panel discussion. If you have any other questions, we can maybe have 2 more questions.
Just one small question. Actually, all local and international observers have done a tremendous job this time, as VDME can understand. Especially during the silent period, the former head of state did, I think, 2 things, significant things, especially announcing this ISB thing, right? And summoning a Security Council. Of course, he can summon Security Council whenever he pleases. But publishing photographs of that, we have never seen who are the members of the Security Council before, through PMD, President Media Division. So those things happen. And just wanted to ask, as your observers done a tremendous job, are you all planning, or you all have provisions or a mandate to take legal actions, or are you planning to take legal actions against these serious violations? Because like, there have been so much of observations done. Even the EC doesn't have provisions to do so. So, it's up to you.
Let's have another.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
that's a question.
I'm asking.
We'll go for another question if you have, and then before answering that, okay, we have one more.
So actually, I just want to clarify one thing. The ANFREL team, so they mentioned in report. Here. In report, the secrecy of ballot. And Professor also mentioned the secrecy of ballot. So just I want to clarify what is the legal provisions. So it's better to know what is the legal provisions about this secrecy of ballot. So they said officers, they can see. So I just want to know about that.
Yeah, so we have 2 questions. One about whether the citizen observer group can go to the courts, and then the second one about the whether what is the specific legal provision when it comes to secrecy of the ballot.
All right. So I will go with the first 2 questions quickly. We have been working with these women's political participations over 2 decades now, and we are happy to say that we were success with local elections. And the provincial also, the quota has been introduced, but with that, the election was postponed for almost 5 years now. I think they are going to go back to the previous system again. Then it will be disaster for women's political participations. But this is continuous fight. Not only PAFFREL, I think, there are many civil society organizations are working on the women's political participation. We have to do it collectively. As PAFFREL, we are going to launch report by next month. We have conducted research in Bangladesh, Nepal, and Sri Lanka, how women's participations, and we are thinking about to organize some regional network also to get experience, share experience each other. So that's number. Number two, the question related to whether we can file the case. Yes, we have been doing this again. In 2015, we filed the case against the President Secretary as PAFFREL. You know the famous case called Silreddy. We were success in the first instance. And we have filed more than 20 cases. We have success couple of cases now. And vote buying, we success in Monragala, the last local elections with CMEV, PAFFREL, we worked together. We success that case. And even these elections, we have filed 3 cases related to presidential elections. Actually 2 interventions to get the elections from the government. You know, the president and his teams trying to postpone the election, even the presidential elections. So we intervened 2 occasions at Supreme Court. And also we filed the case against the misuse of the government resources. And we success. We got the judgment, interim order, preventing appointing such Citizens Advisory Committee, which was support for the development and social welfare programs. They wanted to get engaged with their local level politicians. So we managed to stop that. Even now, our in charge of the complaint unit also here. Now we are perusing all these complaints again and again. We are preparing at least couple of cases because we have identified couple of ministries which they have highly utilized the government resources. Secretary, from the secretary level, the top level, and we are planning to file some cases against those corrupted government officers. I think that with the government change, it may be much easy because the existing officers maybe will support us. But whether they support or not, we are ready to take this to the court.
Two questions. I think your question was about the president or the former president. What we can, what the cases are about intermediaries and maybe even the Attorney General. So I think that's clear. About the gender issue, I would like to say this, that there are various ruses by which the women are on the list, but then they don't win. But I think it's very important for us who are keen on gender issues to combine gender and class. Gender, class and ethnicity. We don't really need women whose husbands and brothers have been in politics and they have passed away or been assassinated and therefore they come in as somebody's wife or mother or whatever. So I think it's a more complicated issue that we need to address fairly carefully. We are very aware of it and it needs to be done. But the parties themselves are patriarchal, feudal. So as long as the parties are patriarchal and feudal and completely corrupt, there's little you can do.
Yeah, Nadishan, you can add that.
Just to add, also, because there might not be gun violence, but there is violence in the digital space. There's social media violence, character assassinations. You saw a few examples in Darshita's presentation today. And you know, going into politics means you should be ready and to take in all of that sexualized, degrading statements, the distortion of your photos and things, and plugging you with different men. And Sam, it's not only about you being willing, your children, your parents, your relatives, close people should also be willing to take that. And it's still there. And it's always more for a woman. And I mean, the accusations for a man will come in a different way if they want to character assassinate. For a woman, it can be more damaging. Also in a society where still the victims are blamed, even in sextortion or other forms of sexual violations, there is victim shaming and things, you know. So then you have to be, you know, strong enough to be want to, and somebody might think, why would I want to go through that? Okay, I love the country, but if this is how what it's going to cost me. So that is also there, and I think still, whatever said and done, the traditional roles haven't disappeared from our society. The role of a mother, the role of a wife, and the caretaker role, and those constraints are there, and I think for some women at least, and I think that also needs to be taken into this consideration. So it's a discussion, because that's where the men need to change. And also the other women also, because then the women also judge the women, and also we've heard how women say, let's not vote for a woman. So all, there's a lot of discussion, but I think many are working on that. You have to keep having this conversation. But I think today's appointment of the Prime Minister will have, I'm thinking, a positive ripple effect. Like some encouragement, and she has been a lecturer, has lectured to many people, and they'll be like, if she could be, maybe we could, and she was just like us. So that could be, because she's not from any of those connected families. So that could, I think, be an encouragement and some like a beacon of hope for women, I think.
There was another question about the secrecy of the ballot. I think ANFREL report also, ANFREL mentioned that in some of the polling stations.
Yeah, I think in practice this is an issue. The facilities are really bad, particularly in some of the rural areas. So de facto there is interference with the vote. But what does one do? That is why I say there has to be a full revamping of the polling centers. That has to be done very carefully with all of the, I think the civil society organization also need to participate in this. Some of these polling centers have been determined 50 years ago, and there are other kinds of issues that are related to that. Yes, it's a very serious issue, but the thing is, who's there from a voter point of view? A sort of non-entitled subaltern voter, what protest can they do when there's a small space and the desk has been turned in such a way? We had a complaint, the desk is turned in such a way that they can see the voting going on. So it's a terrible situation, but that's why I think we have to pay attention to detail. We have to be careful about any kind of violation. There is no complacency that is required. There's one more thing about, did you know that there were 7 murders in the 3 days before the election? Whether they were directly related to the election or not, it speaks to a violent society. And it speaks to brutalization and so on, which I think is very important. It's a small country, and 7 murders in that short period of time is, I think, very serious. It doesn't have to be directly related to the election to have an impact.
Yeah. So I would like to ask just one more question, like online, that I think better to give a chance for them also. So earlier also mentioned on the election day, like when some of the candidate went to vote, and then the media go behind them and then ask questions, and then it's been in the media and all. What is your view on this? Whether this is a election the law violation, or do you have any view on this kind of incidents?
I think the simple answer is it's a violations of Elections Commission's guideline. They have clearly stated you can take a picture, you can take a video, but you can upload only after 4 p.m. after the elections. But otherwise it can be an advantage for that party or that particular candidate. So it has very clear. So whether it is a mainstreaming media or a social media, is violating the Elections Commission guideline.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, Manjula.
Yeah, same thing actually, that clearly violating of media guideline, as well as actually at that time, as election monitors, actually we requested people, voters, not to give comments. If someone asks like whether to whom you are voting, actually we clearly discuss in media stations actually, please avoid, no need to tell that it is totally secret. That is one part actually, that I mean we can blame and we can say that violating media guidelines, but at that same time it is a citizen's responsibility. Another thing, someone talking on this, not related to this your question, but earlier someone discussed that regarding the video uploaded by Mr. Vijitha Herato, NPP, someone. I mean, it wasn't a surprised because everyone are aware, because at that time, even the second day of when starting the counting, we were there, chairman of election commission, but inform everyone, take the photograph of dashboard. This is the dashboard. I also took that photographs at that time. When they are entering to count the second voting, the chairman of election commission informed everyone to take photographs, keep with you. Then everyone took, unfortunately, NPP create a video and upload it. But it also not unfair maybe because they wanted to tell there's a margin, there's a gap, the 1.3 million. They believe that the preferential votes can't be fulfill the gap. That's why actually maybe they have uploaded. But I mean, at that time, election commission, that all of polling agents deployed by political parties were there. Okay, then other thing is that the counting centers, election commission didn't order to leave premises. But unfortunately, soon after the first counting, that most of polling agents were leaving. That's the problem there actually. It is their responsibility to be there until the proceedings is ending. But that was there, then this was I mean that at that time the totally transparency, but they did the mistake, it was acceptable because they started the second counting of preferential votes before giving all the information to general public. At that time, even at that time, they had all the officials 25 certified election results sheet with them. That's why they started that. But they did the mistake, but they corrected it within 45 minutes or 60 minutes. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for all the insights and then the wonderful job that all the citizen observer groups have done during the election. I think it's not going to end. Probably we'll all have to continue for the next election from tonight as well. So thank you very much again, and then we wish the very best for all the observer groups. And thank you very much all the people who attended today, the participants as well. We had some participants from the diplomatic community and the CSOs, the media friends, and then the all other observer groups as well. So we have some refreshments outside. So after 2 hours being here, and then you can enjoy the refreshments, and then we will also maybe meet just after the next election, maybe end of November. Yeah, so we have a round of elections. Thank you very much, everyone.